Can the creator of Pym Particles take down the Waspy Avenger? Time to find out in Comic Book Fights. Hi, I'm Jason Inman.
And I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson.
Welcome to Comic Book Fights, the comic book debate show where we talk about two characters from comic books and we pit them against each other, but we just don't do fights.
What?
That would be boring as hell if it's just like who could punch each other harder, because we know Hank Pym would win. But we also do best costume, best stories. We look at them as a character as a whole because it's more than just punching people in stupid tidy tights. And we're gonna be adults about this, unlike the rest of the internet, and we're gonna listen to each other's debates, and we're going to determine fairly. And people in the comments say like, oh, you definitely need a third person. I say we can be adults and we can have a real conversation, and that's what we're gonna do.
What a concept.
I know. Ashley, the fight this week is Ant-Man versus the Wasp. But whoa,
Jason.
Whoa.
Which Ant-Man and which Wasp?
We're gonna talk about Hank Pym. I am representing Hank Pym, Ant-Man. And who are you talking about?
Janet Van Dyne, the original Wasp.
The original Wasp. All right, so let's go into round one, the actual fight. Ashley representing the Wasp. Why does the Wasp win?
Well, she has very similar powers to Ant-Man.
They do have very similar powers.
But with better upgrades. And let me tell you a little bit about those. She can fly, but she can fly because she either has mutant wings or she has wings built into all of her suits, depending on the continuity. Ant-Man sometimes has wings, not always.
Depending on the costume.
So this puts her consistently at a tactical advantage. You always want the higher ground. Sometimes he just flies around on bugs as well, which is gross and bad form. Her telepathic control of insects actually extends beyond just ants. So she can get her mental hooks into something like a killer bee, then Hank is really, really screwed. She also shoots electrical stings from her hands or from her gloves, which is her greatest offensive attack and something that Ant-Man has never had in any incarnation. She's also smaller even at her full stature, so she presents less of a target and is just tougher to land a blow on than Ant-Man. So in a fight, if she can get the drop on him, I definitely think Janet has a big advantage over Hank. Now tell me why you think Ant-Man's gonna win this fight.
Look, they got similar powers.
Very similar powers.
But there's a couple advantages that Hank Pym has over the Wasp that the Wasp does not have. I mean, she's got stinging blasts, and she's got other stuff like that. But Hank Pym is a super genius. This is the man that was so smart, he built a robot that wanted to destroy the world. Remember that guy Ultron? Yeah, it's from the second Avengers movie. Sounds like James Spader. Ignore that part. But if a robot sounded like James Spader, you know a super insane genius created it.
Quotes Pinocchio.
Yeah, that's right. So that's pretty advanced super genius intellect. Hank Pym is on the level of Tony Stark, Reed Richards' intelligence levels. He's that smart. Also, Hank Pym has the ability to grow big as well as shrink, which is something that we've only seen Janet do once. Hank Pym,
she did it.
Hank Pym at his height was 100 feet tall and he could lift 50 tons. Also, Hank Pym has been taught in hand-to-hand combat by Captain America. So not only is he a super genius, not only can he grow big, but he has combat training from a super soldier. Also, here's the last little, piece de los stones. Hank Pym is crazy. And because he's crazy, that means that he's unpredictable. You don't know what Hank Pym you're fighting. And also, you land a punch on Hank Pym, he could turn into Yellow Jacket, kick you in the balls, kill your grandmother, and then date your daughter. He's that unpredictable. You don't know what you're gonna get. Yeah, it's that cuckoo crazy. This is Hank Pym, and that's his greatest weapon. Okay, Ashley, let's go into final arguments, hearing the arguments that we've heard. Who wins this fight?
I'm gonna be honest. I hate Hank Pym.
I do too.
I really
But I'm here to argue for him.
Don't want to give it to him. I don't want to give it to him because he smacked Janet around in a bunch of different continuities.
He's crazy.
But I think you presenting the fact that he can grow in a way that Janet hasn't done consistently.
Yes.
I think that's a powerful argument. And if I'm going to give him anything, I think he might edge her out on this. I do think, though, that the Wasp stings are a very powerful attack that she has in her arsenal.
Sure. I would make the counter argument, though, that if anybody would have a contingency against the Wasp's stings, it would be Hank Pym.
As the person who designed them,
and also
yes.
and also that's another thing in this fight. Hank Pym basically gave Janet her powers.
He did, yes.
To me, again, remember, Hank Pym is crazy.
Yes, he's like Charlie Sheen crazy.
He could turn off her powers. I bet he has a way to do it.
He might.
So if we're talking about, like, balls of the wall,
Also,
end-all, be-all fight, to me, I think there's no way Janet wins.
And I fully believe that Hank Pym would kill Janet.
Yes.
I don't believe Janet would kill Hank.
Yes.
Just putting that out
yes.
there.
So I think in a final argument, to me, I think it's Hank Pym, Ant-Man.
I do too.
No, I think Janet, I'm sorry, in this round, doesn't stand a chance.
I agree.
So, all right, we're giving 1 point to Hank Pym, Ant-Man. Let's go into the second round. Who has the better stories? Who has the better stories in comic books?
Well,
or movies.
I want to bring up Avengers #1.
Sure.
The first ever Avengers. Janet is the only minority founding Avenger, and she's the only female founding Avenger, and I think those are two things that need to be deeply respected and I think are disregarded about her very often. She's also the person who names the Avengers.
That's the more,
She's
yeah,
the
I think it's
reason
very
that they're called the Avengers. So regardless of what happens in Avengers #1, and it's mostly them chasing Loki around the world, I think...
And the Hulk through a circus.
Yes, he's...
Go read it. I'm not joking.
That's true.
I am not making any of that up. The Hulk joins a
1000%.
circus.
That's 1,000% because he gets mad at a bridge, I think, or a train. I can't remember.
Loki tricks him into to breaking a bridge that a train crosses.
That's right.
Yeah.
But just those three facts alone and the impact that those had on the Marvel Universe, on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and on superheroes in general, I think Janet's impact cannot be ignored. And if that was all she ever did, she'd still be an incredibly important superhero.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, Avengers 212 to 224, she ends her violent relationship with Hank Pym when it becomes abusive and
Good for her.
reinvents herself as an independent, self-actualized woman, which is so feminist and badass for the time and would be even if this was a modern day storyline, that I think it has to stand out as not only one of the greatest Avengers storylines, but the greatest Janet moments of all time. In Avengers Forever, she leads the Avengers and becomes...
that are the time travel Avengers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she becomes the first woman to lead the Avengers. Which
Is that the first woman leader?
It's the first woman to lead the Avengers for a significant arc.
Okay.
And as a founding Avenger and as the person who gave them their name, I think that's a cool symmetry.
I want to say like she's either led or Scarlet Witch has led before that. I can't remember.
They have, but never for longer than a single
Black
arc
Widow.
or during a moment of panic.
Black Widow did lead the Avengers before that.
And then in Avengers Volume 4, she basically escapes the microverse, which is something that only the Fantastic Four had done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So Janet's not a super genius, which many characters in the Marvel Universe are, including Hank. But to be able to escape the microverse all on your own is pretty damn impressive. And I just wanted to shout that out.
Yeah.
So those are my arguments. At the time of this, we're not going to discuss Ant-Man and the Wasp. So she hasn't had a ton of impact in the MCU, which is why I'm not bringing up
But that's not the Wasp that we're talking about. We're talking about Janet Van Dyne, not...
Hope Van Dyne,
and we're not going to talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp spoilers.
So there you go. Tell me about Hank's greatest stories.
So Hank Pym has a great story. One of my favorite is The Unspoken. It's Mighty Avengers number 227 through 31. This is where Hank Pym is leading this kind of bandy team of Avengers when they think Janet is dead, but she's actually in the microverse. And this is where we learn the concept of the scientist supreme of all the multiverse, and we learn that Hank Pym is the scientist supreme of Earth 616. Also, this is a favorite arc of mine because this is where he becomes the Wasp and he wears a costume like the Wasp to honor Janet, which I think is really good. Another storyline that I think is really good is His Name is Yellow Jacket, which is Avengers number 59 through 60. This is a Roy Thomas story, and this is where Hank's new superhero identity, Yellow Jacket, is introduced. It's also the first issue to introduce the idea that Hank Pym is crazy.
Yeah.
Also, he marries his longtime girlfriend, Janet Van Dyne, in this story.
Yeah.
The Winsome Wasp, as some might call her. Also,
I love that name.
It's a classic, but it's okay.
It's cute.
Also, the trial of Yellow Jacket. We went right from Yellow Jacket trial.
Yellow Jacket's a jerk.
Avengers number 227. So we finally see the fall of Hank Pym, and it's basically Hank Pym being in prison as he defends himself against a frame job. It's kind of sad, and he sort of decides to retire from from superheroing in this storyline. The sad thing about most Hank Pym storylines is they're usually based around failure or his craziness. And that's the reason why I haven't included any of his modern stories where he sort of combines himself with Ultron, because it's just silly, stupid. All right, let's go to final arguments here. Ashley, being objective.
Yes.
You heard the Hank Pym stories.
I did.
You've heard the Janet stories.
Yes.
What are your thoughts? Who's better?
I think it has to go to Janet. And I think you brought up a lot of very interesting, very compelling storylines. But you're right. A lot of Hank's legacy is Hank failing at things. Now, superheroes, you never get that final act. So ultimately, they all fail. But Janet, in the beginning, suffers from what a lot of female characters did, and that's being an accessory. And that's being a supporting character without room to make a lot of impact. And in spite of that, she's made a lot of impact in the larger Marvel legacy. And I just think that deserves to be respected and to be held up in the laurels of what comic book stories are. And she always looks cool while she does it. And we'll talk more about that in the next segment. I think
don't jump ahead of the categories here.
I think it's got to go to Janet. How about you?
You know, this is tough. This is a tough category because I don't think either one of them have great stories.
And they are inextricably tied together.
They're very tied together, and they both suffer from the same problems that they are, when you think about it, and I hate to say it, and come at me, Internet, don't care, supporting characters.
I
They're
both
agree. Supporting characters. So neither one of them have, I mean, think about it. We don't have a solo series on either pick.
No.
I mean,
because the Wasp solo series is not about Janet.
So, you know, I honestly think you're correct. I think it is Janet, primarily because you pulling Avengers Forever, which is one of the best Avengers storylines of all time. I'd forgot that Janet was the team leader there, which is a really good point. And she's only the team leader, though, because Cap it's the Cap when he's suffering mental instability, but she's still the leader, and that is a great team that she leads there, so it's really good, because I think it's modern day Janet is the one that's the team leader.
Yes.
And you have modern day Janet and modern day Hank, which is very interesting, with Yellow Jacket on the team. But yeah, Hank's stories are all about him kind of screwing up. So I'm giving this point to Janet. Who are you giving this to?
I'm giving it to Janet.
All right, so Janet, congratulations, you win Best Story.
We're in the game.
Let's go. We are tied up 1-1. Let's go to Best Costume. Who has the best costume? We're going to talk about all their costumes. Let's talk about Janet.
Well, Janet's a fashion designer.
Sure.
And because of that, and because that was part of her identity for a long time, she's always had really cool costumes. I think the classic Wasp costume, the red one with the pointy hat, is amazing.
Oh, really?
I love this costume. I will stand for this costume. The Alex Ross version of this costume is beautiful. It's one of the only classic costumes that you can see reimagined by an artist like Alex Ross today, and it still stands up as being really cool. And for me, it strikes that perfect early Marvel balance of retro future. Like, it looks like something you would see in the Jetsons, and I think it's iconic because of that. I also think the costume that I'm going to put up a picture of on the screen right now, the black bodysuit with the gold detailing, I think
is her best costume.
Is the best costume she's ever had. It's stunning, and I think it's one of the best comic book hero costumes ever, so much so that I bought the action figure of it.
Let's not even bother. She's
in
back.
The back. She's got big
right
wings. And I just think because it's that stunning that they made an action figure of it, it deserves to be respected, and I love it. So I would fight you. Hank has had similar costumes. I don't think it's ever been better than that costume, but tell me about his.
Hank actually has 3 great costumes. His Yellow Jacket costume is a very interesting idea with the little pointy ends. He has the antennae, the symbol there. He's actually wore it for a really, really long time. The modern Janet costume that you described is derivative of the 70s Yellow Jacket. You can clearly tell it's influenced by it.
I was also going to say they co-opt her Avengers Earth's Mightiest Hero. The design is from that as well because she's got the antennae.
She has yellow. So that costume is derivative of a Hank costume. Hank also wears a yellow and blue Goliath costume that is pretty cool, where it sort of has an X. That's the costume that he wears in Avengers Forever. It's a really kind of cool design. It's basically when he was like growing big and stuff like that. But finally, I have to mention the classic Ant-Man design that has been also worn by Scott Lang. Yeah, the one with the helmet around and the black suit with the blue trunks. And the reason why I talk about that is because that design has stuck around, that Jack Kirby design has stuck around since the Avengers' first appearance in the 60s. and it is even the basis of the movie costume. Now, here's the thing to look at from the movie costume, and this to me is a big part of my argument. They did an homage to Hank Pym's original costume for the movie. There is no Janet costume to ape from. They sort of ape from the one that you talk about, but they still give her the classic Ant-Man helmet, which is
God forbid we gave her Janet's costume.
Well, yeah, which is the Jack Kirby design of Ant-Man's original helmet. So to me, that makes my argument right here. Let's go to final arguments. Ashley, who has the better costumes?
I'm gonna bring this up. This video is called Ant-Man versus the Wasp.
Yep.
It's not called Goliath versus the Wasp. It's not called Yellow Jacket versus the Wasp. You named only one Ant-Man costume.
I still win.
I'm gonna argue based on that. I do think that's a great design. I also talked about Janet's Jack Kirby design. There's a reason that those designs have stuck around, and why we do see them aped. I just don't think you can beat that Wasp costume.
That one Wasp costume that's derivative of a Yellow Jacket costume.
I do, absolutely. Absolutely.
I honestly think, again, I think the movie argument makes the argument. There is a reason why they chose that costume, because it's so iconic and it's so memorable. It's the one everybody knows, that stupid helmet. I think it looks dumb, but like they doubled it. They made it the movie Wasp costumes too. Like they thought that helmet was so design iconic, and it's a Kirby costume. And to me, when your argument is that Janet's best costume is a derivative costume of Hank Pym's Yellow Jacket costume, to me that knocks it down as a Wasp costume. That would be, to me, saying like, if we were to talk about the best Robin costumes, why one Robin costume is better than the other when they're all kind of derivative
I would fight that.
of the original costume.
May I make a counterpoint?
Sure.
Present me with a Janet costume that's not derivative of a Hank costume.
Her original one.
But they're both red. They're complementary.
Her original one with the pointy helmet head.
Yeah, but she's the same color scheme as him.
Sure, but that's because they were supposed to be a couple. But I would say that like her helmet is quite distinct, because I think they were trying to go for a Stinger kind of idea.
Yeah.
But
I think
they quickly dropped that design, and I think rightfully so.
I mean, I love that costume, but it's not functional.
But even when you talk about her Earth Mightiest Heroes design, and I love Earth Mightiest Heroes, but again, her costume is derivative of Yellow Jackets, so
I guess I just think it's done better on her.
Sure, I mean, I'll give you that point, but to me, I don't think you can beat the original Kirby Ant-Man costume as, like, best costume, if we're talking about these two characters.
Sure. Okay, Jason, so we're at a draw.
I go Ant-Man.
What do we do?
What do you say? What's your choice? Say your damn choice. Absolutely. Okay, so this is the first time that this has ever happened on Comic Book Fights. So when this happens, we go to the tried and true tested ability of paper, rock, scissors. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, and draw, okay? So 1, 2, 3. Oh, wait.
Oh, 1, 2, 3,
oh, my
draw.
bad. I said it wrong. Here we go. We're doing this live. We've never done this before. Okay, 1, 2, 3, draw. My apologies. Okay, ready? You ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, draw. Paper covers rock.
There we go.
Ant-Man wins the best costume. So we come down to the final. This is Hank wins best. He wins the fight. He wins best costume. Janet only wins best story. So Hank is the winner of Comic Book Fights. Congratulations, Hank. Thank you so much for playing. And yes, you're still crazy. All right, go down in the comments and tell us what 2 characters you want us to fight in future Comic Book Fights. If we use your idea, we'll shout you out. Also, click subscribe.
And for more exclusive geeky content, check out patreon.com/Jawiin. Come join us in the Hall of Justice and be a super friend.
See you around the channel. Thanks for watching.